President Trump goes into the joint session of Congress Tuesday just as new polls show 6 in 10 Americans disapprove of his job performance 1 year into his second term. And days after a bruising loss with the Supreme Court ruling against his broad use of emergency tariffs.
It shows that our system of checks and balances works. The Supreme Court weighed in on this issue, which what I've said for months was ultimately they were going to decide and they were going to make a determination.
The Congress was created to be an oversight body of the executive branch and a separate but equal branch of government, not something that yields all of its power to the president.
Joining me now, Miles Taylor, former spokesman and chief of staff to Homeland Security Cabinet Secretaries, now founder at Defiance.org, and Molly Jong-Fast, MS Now political analyst, host of the Fast Politics podcast, and contributing writer for New York Times Opinion. Welcome to you both. Glad to have you here, Miles and Molly. So, Miles, you first, because past presidents have approached State of the Union as an opportunity to deliver a unifying message to bring the country together. But even if President Trump may not be so inclined, what message would you like to hear from him and what he could send? And what can he say that could touch hearts on both sides of the political aisle?
Well, look, Alex, I mean, it would be if he tried to be a unifier. I will say people remember, maybe a few people remember when Donald Trump first came into office in 2017, his first address before Congress, folks were surprised because he tried to strike a little bit more of a unifying tone. It was one of the rare occasions he did that, and he stuck to the script. And so he didn't sound as sort of off kilter as he usually does. Now, I doubt we're going to see that Donald Trump that night. And that's why, Alex, you're seeing so many of these boycotts to the State of the Union. I mean, we are organizing a boycott rebuttal of the State of the Union at Defiance.org. And we decided to do that because we don't think the president is going to tell the truth that night. We don't think he's going to be unifying. And we're calling our event the State of the Swamp for a reason, because Donald Trump said, Alex, he was going to drain the swamp. And now through corruption and greed and abuses of power, he's turned America into that swamp. So we're bringing in Robert De Niro and mayors from cities under siege and Mark Ruffalo and people like that to tell the truth about what's happening to the state of our union.
That's a cool crew. And I was going to ask you more about it, so I'm glad that you got to it there. Molly, Trump is going into the joint session after taking it on the chin from the Supreme Court. Yeah. Will White House speechwriters rewrite his speech based on the tariff loss? I mean, will Trump be able to resist the urge to rip into the Supreme Court justices that are sitting only a few feet away?
Yeah, you know, that's a really good question, and I've been thinking about that a lot. And I actually just rewatched the 2017 State of the Union address that Miles was talking about. And what's interesting is he begins with a whole thing about Black History Month. And then the crowd behind him is so delighted that he's unifying. You can see just the sort of hunger for the normal Trump. Or I think normal Trump is the wrong word, but a more normal presidency. And he can, and I think one of the problems we've seen over the last 8 years, remember it's 8 years since that speech, is that Trump tends to just sort of not go off script. And so I think there is a non-zero chance that Trump instead muses about how betrayed he feels by Gorsuch and Barrett. And it's ironic because this Supreme Court has really given Donald Trump an off-ramp for tariffs, which are unpopular and inflationary. And he could just take this off-ramp, and I don't think he will.
Yeah, others have echoed those sentiments earlier on the show. USA Today's Susan Page asks, which Trump is likely to show up? Will it be the economy is fixed Trump, or I feel your pain Trump, America First Trump, or Nobel Prize peacemaker Trump? So, Miles, will Trump even deliver his speech as written, or is Congress bracing for a more kind of freewheeling, grievance-filled event that goes on and on, kind of campaign style?
I think you probably predicted it with the latter, Alex. In fact, that's why I think so many Democrats are going to be boycotting the State of the Union. I mean, we continue up until 5 minutes before your show. I was hearing from senators and congressmen who are going to come to the Defiance.org event or who are going to go to the MoveOn.org event who are skipping it. And so I think there's a risk that Donald Trump is legitimately worried about his crowd size there. I mean, they're going to have to fill seats in the House chamber if as many Dems as I expect to boycott the event. That's going to make Donald Trump, even if he had some unifying speech, which I doubt he does, it's going to make him angry. If he sees empty seats in that chamber, he's going to be furious. I mean, right now, we've got a sold-out event at the National Press Club. We have more people scheduled to be in our room than there are likely to be in the House floor at his event. Wow. And I suspect it's the same with the MoveOn.org event. Donald Trump is going to be furious when he finds that out. So I think that will cause him, Alex, to go off script. I think he will go on long. A lot of the Democrats aren't going because they tell me they think he'll go an hour 30, hour 40, possibly even 2 hours. That could make it the longest State of the Union address in history. So we know it will be grievance laden. Why? Because that's where his head has been at for weeks and for months. And he just had one of the worst weeks of his presidency. So I don't expect him to get out of that funk, even if his speechwriters want him to.
Look, Miles, and this is no disrespect to all the work and effort and what will surely be a successful thing on Tuesday night for your program there. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is advising Democrats to not boycott Trump's speech entirely, but to attend in, quote, silent defiance. So Molly, which approach do you think would be most effective for Democrats, even though a lot of them are wanting to go to Miles' event?
Yeah, I think that this is a really important question. And again, what we're faced with is the normalcy bias. Is it better for Democrats to act as if things are normal when we clearly see that they are not? Or is it better for Democrats to not show up and to show that they really, that this president is acting out of bounds? And the Supreme Court has just ruled against him. And instead of saying, okay, my tariffs are illegal, he said, actually, I'm going to do more tariffs. I'm going to do them a different way. And so I honestly believe, and again, this is because I think it's important to draw attention to how abnormal this is and how out of bounds Trump's behavior has become. And so I actually think it's better for Democrats not to show up, because it sends a clear message that we are out of the bounds of normal now, that this is autocracy and not in the way, this is not the way that any of this is supposed to work. So I actually think it would be more meaningful for them to not show up.
Okay. Miles, I want to ask you about the Reuters report, which is about an expanded use of military force. That has topped Trump's agenda in the second term. It's overshadowing the issues like cost of living that are much higher priorities for Americans. How do you expect Republicans to react if Trump references military action? You know, what happens then? Are they going to, cheer for war?
Yeah, Alex, with what we've seen in Venezuela, with what we've seen in the threats towards Greenland, I think that Donald Trump is pushing towards an interventionist military that a lot of Republicans campaigned on avoiding. They said they were going to end the forever wars. And I think that's going to put a lot of Republicans in that audience in an awkward position. Watch for those moments during the State of the Union when the president's talking about foreign policy. Some of those people are in races where they pledged to their constituents that if they had got reelected for this term, they would stop the forever wars. Are they, as you asked, going to be cheering for another war? I think that that's going to be an awkward moment for them. And to say nothing of the fact that the president has exerted so much military force here in the United States. He is going to talk about that, Alex. He wants to tout it. Donald Trump is proud of the fact that he has sent U.S. forces into American states and cities. And that's going to be another thing that's going to put those members of Congress from those states and localities on the spot. And it's why we're seeing truly unprecedented things like the people coming to rebut him to Washington, D.C. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is coming and speaking at the Defiance.org event. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, 2 cities under siege. Never before in American history have mayors of U.S. cities come to the nation's capital to rebut the president during his State of the Union. As Molly says, this is not a normal moment. The response cannot be normal.
Molly, you want to give me a headline of what you think it might read on Wednesday morning after the State of the Union?
Well, look, I think that I think it's going to be hard for him to stay on script. If we've seen anything from the recent Trump speeches, even the speech he did yesterday, the speech he did after when he went and did that presser after the Supreme Court ruling, my guess is that it's going to be a lot of grievances, just like we always see. And so my headline would be, what can Democrats do to protect our norms and institutions, because that is ultimately, coming into the midterms, going to be the big thing that all of us should be focused on.
Okay. Hey, Miles, can't wait to hear how it all turns out with the event from Defiance.org. It's a cool crew. Like I said, all those people you named, I'm like, that's going to be interesting. Thanks, guys. Good to see you both.